Hey guys, welcome to another movie review. Today I'm going to be talking about a horror film that isn't very new, but it's new enough where I really can't call it old yet. It's a film that did get a lot of attention back when it first came out. I think it came out like 1 or 2 years ago, I think. It's called It Follows, and it's about a girl who is, I think she's like in college or leaving high school or whatever, and um, she's starting to see a guy that is kind of unusual. He's kind of a little bit of a weirdo, and basically, they have a sexual encounter one night, and then randomly out of the blue, he takes her to this place that's kind of away from society and so forth, and he informs her that he has. A haunting force of some kind that's always been after him for the longest time, ever since he last saw one of his previous girlfriends, who apparently gave this curse to him as well. And it's a miraculous force that takes the form of a complete stranger and is willing to follow you and potentially kill you wherever you go. And so he's informing her at that very time because his haunting force is currently after him when he's telling her about this. And he's warning her that the very thing that's happening to him at that moment is going to happen to her very, very soon after that day. So time goes on. The girl just thinks he's a little crazy after a while. Just they kind of lose touch, and believe it or not, this guy is right. These random strangers are following her around. They seem to want to hurt her and so forth. And so they try to track this guy down, learn more about this force that was passed down to him and so forth. And they later learn that they really can't kill this thing, but they can pass it on to someone else somehow. And so throughout the course of the movie, they figure out, even if it does involve passing it on, is there truly a way to kill off this thing or creature or force that takes the form of strangers to go after people who are haunted by this curse? And if so, can this girl remove the curse before it's too late? So overall, guys, It Follows was an okay film for me. I wasn't completely in love with it. To tell you the truth, when this film first came out, I kind of ignored it on purpose. At first, I was kind of like, I don't know about this one. But I think the idea is kind of contemporary. I think you can tell this kind of story in modern day or in the 70s or in the 80s. It's one of those stories where it doesn't really need a specific time period to get told in. So I like that aspect of the movie, but as a movie itself, I kind of had a couple of problems with it. So let's go over some of those things with the movie. So for my positives and negatives of It Follows, for the positives, I like the synthesizer 80s styled musical score to this movie. It really felt like something that came out in the 80s, and we were watching like something that John Carpenter would have made at that time period and so forth. So I like the musical score in this movie. I liked how it felt very fitting with this movie. I like how it looks like a John Carpenter film. It really does look like something that John Carpenter, like maybe back in his heyday, would have worked on at one point. So I like how it has like a Halloween, They Live, The Thing kind of a look to it. So I liked how they managed to maintain that look in the movie. There's also a lot of homages to Halloween. There's a lot of scenes that are kind of inspired with the cinematography from Halloween and so forth. The scene from Halloween with Jamie Lee Curtis looking out the window to look at Michael Myers at one moment, and the next moment she looks outside, he's gone, and so forth. There's a scene in the movie that's very much inspired by that, and there's another couple of Halloween things that they do in the movie that are very much inspired from that first movie. So I liked all those homages that this film makes to Halloween. I also thought the story concept was kind of disturbing as well, and I think that works well for this movie. I think it really does make the point that it'd be very creepy to have this stalker force thing that you really can't see with the human eye, but it takes form of strangers, and there's certain things within all these strangers that are all in common with each other. So I think the concept of this movie is pretty disturbing. I think it works well when it works well, but unfortunately it doesn't work well when it doesn't work well. So I like the concept of this movie. This film also plays off of the silence very well. There's scenes that are completely silent, have no sound at all, have no musical score at all, and they really play off of those scenes very, very well. So as far as playing off the silence in these environments go, I think It Follows did a good job with that. And overall, you do feel pretty sorry for this main character. You feel sorry that this thing is kind of after her for the worst reason. She really felt feelings for this guy that gave this thing to her. And you really just feel sorry for her. You really want her to get rid of this thing once and for all. and unfortunately, there's not really a clear answer as to how she could get rid of it. For my negatives of It Follows, I thought the ending of this film was very abrupt. It felt very, in a way, it kind of felt incomplete. It really didn't tell you how things got resolved. There's something that happens in the end that doesn't really have a lot of answers to it. And I understand that's probably part of the mystery of this movie, but overall, I thought the ending was very abrupt. It needed more completion. There also wasn't enough rules about this force that follows this girl around. There's scenes where like this creature will figure out, or this whoever has this force inside their body when they're following this girl around. Like they can figure out when they're like about to walk into a trap and so forth, but they can't figure out things like opening a door or using their voice and so forth. So there's certain rules about this creature that didn't make perfect sense to me that much. There's certain scenes where it's like, oh, well, they can do this, but doesn't know how to open a door. Certain things like that. There's also the boyfriend character that kind of gave this girl this creature thing. I thought he was kind of flat and irresponsible with the whole thing. It was kind of like, if you have a really bad STD, you kind of don't just randomly go around sleeping with other people. Like, you kind of need to take responsibility and care about them. Like, you don't want them to suffer from the same problem that you have and so forth. So there's scenes like that where just like, wouldn't this guy kind of be aware of that? I understand if he's trying to move on and trying to ignore this thing that he seems like he's the only one who's able to see it and so forth, but how irresponsible of him to just kind of randomly pass it on to this girl. I'm like, hey, there you go. I gave you this thing that's going to haunt you forever. And just like, that's not very responsible of you. There's also some shots in this movie that feel way too far away. I understand they're trying to get like a good cinematography shot and good environment shots for some of these scenes, but some of these shots just feel too far away. It's just like, okay, is that a person on a swing set? Is that someone walking towards the person? There's just some of these shots are just so far away. It's just like, what am I supposed to be looking at? There's also some scenes in here that really just aren't as scary as they feel like they are. There's just some scenes that you can tell they're trying to make it as scary as they can, and unfortunately, it just doesn't work. It just feels like it's trying too hard. And overall, I thought a lot of these characters were pretty boring. I really didn't feel, like I felt sorry for the lead character, the lead girl in the movie, but some of the friends that she hangs out with throughout this movie were just kind of boring. I really never felt invested or intrigued by anybody. So as far as character development goes, I would have preferred characters that I kind of cared about, because unfortunately I didn't really care about a lot of these characters. But overall, I'm going to give It Follows a 7.5 out of 10. Not really a film I'd want to own or rewatch, but it's one of those films where if you're intrigued by the concept, if you kind of want a modern day film that kind of looks like an old John Carpenter horror film, it's not the worst way to go, watch a movie or anything or rent it from somewhere. So 7.5 out of 10 for me. I think it works best as a rental, but It Follows is definitely not a film where I could see myself owning it and rewatching it anytime soon.